So, welcome to our sixth session of the Mastering Academic Writing group. Since there are 135 registrants for this webinar, and I know that most of them don't know me, I would like to introduce me. I'm Dr. Maria Sanchez Patiño, and a coach and editor of dissertation with a PhD in education and an MA in applied linguistics. And I also have an extensive experience guiding dissertation, and that's why I love to conduct these webinars about the research process. As usual, we begin with a quote. And today's quote points out one key aspect of research, the coherence among different elements of it. It's not a matter of acceptance of decision, but mainly of how coherent those choices are to make the whole functions as a unit. And this is the agenda for this session of our group. As usual, the first point of the agenda is to talk about the exercise that was given to you the previous week. This is an example of how to write the problem statement and the purpose of the study coherently. Of course, the purpose statement was limited to the first sentence due to space in the slide. The only point I would challenge in this example is the part in red, because it is not clear why the aging of the world population makes the tendency of all people to recollect for certain events important to a field of a study that is not mentioned either. Those recollections may be important for the people who recollect them, but why they are so important for a field of a study that they must be researched? That's an important missing information. If that information is included in this example, that example will be perfect. And this is an example of reflection about the task. It is a good reflection since the person analyzed their work using the criteria discussed for that type of task. So the person use the criteria that we talked about in the previous session and use it to make a reflection about the whole process. And that metacognition is a very useful tool to improve your academic writing and also the writing of your dissertation. The focus of today's meeting is twofold, since I wanted to cover the writing of as many required elements of a dissertation as possible during the 8 weeks of our work. We had only 8 weeks, and we, at the beginning in this group, we analyzed important aspects of academic writing, and during the last webinars, we have concentrated on the writing of specific parts of your dissertation. And that's why I put together these two elements, research questions and methodology. But by the way, next year, I will conduct one group on literature review during 8 weeks and 6 groups of 4 weeks each to deepen on research question, research design, findings, discussion, critical reading, and critical analysis. We are going to discuss all those themes very deeply in during next year. Well, coming back to today's theme, all the elements that are in are here for this webinar have been discussed more deeply in the other group. I have another group that is called Moving Forward with Thesis. And we have discussed all this in very deeply there. And I know that there are people here that are registered for both groups, so they may think that is a repetition. But since there are many, many new people, I want you to at least provide you with some basic ideas about research questions and methodology. So, research question is what you want to answer or what you want to test. And these are the elements that are usually present in a good research question. So you have elements that are used to describe what is involved in the problem. You have another one that is used to talk about the process, how things happen in the problem. You have another one that is focused on the reasons for doing that, and also what you intend to do is another information that must be present in a good research question. All of them express the ideas that are involved in the situation that the question looks for information to address it. Of course, not all of them have to be included in each research question. It depends on the nature of what needs to be answered. For instance, a research question that intends to describe the current situation that is studied may focus on the what, who, when, and where that are involved in it. A research question that is focused on exploring a situation may include those four interrogatives, but also the how, to know the process associated, while a question that intends to explain will include the why of the situation. The nature of what you intend to do in order to answer the question should be explicit, or at least it can be inferred easily. For example, describe implies to get a picture of what is going on, usually because you don't have sufficient information. Explore implies no information about the exact scope of what you will work with. So, an unexpected information is a possible outcome. Compare is focused on establishing differences and similarities among individuals and groups, while explain begins with a description but includes relationship, especially cause-effect, among variables. Adrian, welcome back. I know that you will be there. I know that. Okay, considering the fuzzy of research question, we can have a script to follow when formulating them. I think they can be a useful tool for you to write better research questions. Let's have a look at that. The first script is focused on the description of the elements of the problem, and that implies the building of a clear and comprehensive picture of the study situation in terms of what we think should be studied. The samples that will be presented refer to quantitative and qualitative research questions. However, it's important to point out that the research method that should be used derives from the research question, not the other way around. In other words, first you formulate the question, what you want to answer, and then you choose the research method that lets answer the question in a valid way. If you look at the script that you can use to formulate a research question about describe a situation, see that the question begins with a what or how. because then you need to write down the unknown element, what you are looking for, okay? And you also have to talk about the participants, the site of the period of time. Here you have some examples of research questions to describe the elements of a problem following the script, okay? So you can see how the script can be used to write down research questions that are well focused on the goal of describing a situation, okay? And now we go to a script to write a research question for exploring. Exploration of the elements of the problem implies that you do not know the whole set of elements that may emerge from the study situation. And of course, you need that information to fill up your gap of knowledge. Therefore, the exploration goal goes beyond a description to find the unknown, as the script shows. So the script is focused on looking for elements that may that you don't know that exist in the situation, but that everything points out that they are there. Here you have some examples to illustrate research question intending to explore what the elements of a problem are. And you can see that when you ask what differentiated strategies are used to teach and so on, you are not sure about how, what are the strategies that are used. By reading literature, you have a first idea of that, but you need to test that. And it is possible that a non-strategy emerges from the situation and you say, oh, wait a minute, I have something new. I didn't know this, okay? So this is a script to write a research question for comparing. Why? Because you may be interested in establishing differences and similarities between or among individuals or groups. In that case, your goal is to compare those entities, and this is a useful script to do that. If you check these examples, you can see that the questions ask about similarities and differences. So they ask about a comparison, okay? Look how the script can be filled out with the needed information, the central phenomenon, the participant, the research site or the period of time, and then you have good research questions for a dissertation. And the final script is focused on the explanation of the elements of the problem. Such an explanation begins with a description, but includes relationships among variables, especially ones of cause and effect. This kind of research question is intended to get information about how things function, how they relate to each other, or reasons to act in a specific way. The examples show research questions formulated to get information that explain the identified problem. For instance, what is the relationship between the attitude of new IT students toward technology and their score at the core subject? So you are looking for a relationship. In this case, it's not necessarily a cause-effect relationship. It's just looking for a relationship. And the second one looks for reasons to explain why employees of that company act in that way. Wenderson says, hello, my name is Wenderson Fikiri. I'm a graduate student at Morgan State University. I need help in academic writing style. Well, my dear, we're finishing this group of working on academic writing, but there are several webinars at Doctoral.net that you can check about how to do academic writing. And next year, we are going to work on it again. Okay, so we are going to talk about all those things once again next year. Okay. Once you have formulated your research question, it is advisable to evaluate them in terms of how well they reflect the characteristics of a good research question. Okay, you formulate your research question, but you need to know if it is well done, if it is going to really function as you wanted them to function. So, these are the important criteria to evaluate a research question. You have to know if it is specific, if it has all the key elements that are needed, if you can answer that, if it is interesting somebody else apart from you, if it is feasible or meaningful and ethical, and so on. But Doctoral.net provides you with the automation to do that, and that's great. You can go to Doctoral.net and look for an automation that takes you through all these criteria. And not only that, that automation includes the explanation of each criteria. So if you want to know why it is ethical, a criterion that you have to fulfill, or that your research question have to fulfill, there at that automation you can do that. Okay, I strongly recommend you to use that automation, since it will provide you with a view of how strong your research questions are, and a unique opportunity to reflect upon features that you may have considered straightforward, but that in reality, they are not so straightforward, okay? So now it's time to explore the research design of your dissertation. Remember that I said that I have to put together those two elements, research question and research design, in order to give this group a basic idea about that. Okay, so as the slide shows, it is the plan you create to conduct the study. So think about a research design as a plan to do something. In this case, your research study. In that sense, it comprises all the elements related to the how to develop the study in a coherent and logical way. Why? Because you need to address the research problem effectively and achieve the established purpose. So think of it as the blueprint to gather and analyze data. And as the image suggests, it is strongly influenced by the research question, as I pointed out before. So that's what is a research design, a blueprint of how are you going to conduct your study. So other people can not only evaluate your procedures and the way that you acted, but they can also replicate your study. Okay, so such a plan includes information about the selection of population, sample, instruments, procedure, as well as the gathering and analysis of data. It functions as the user guide of your dissertation that would lead the evaluation and replication of your study, And that implies that the clearer and more detailed it is, the more accurate the evaluation and replication could be. I think when you are trying to cook a cake, the more precise the recipe is, the clearer it is, the more possibilities you have to cook a great cake. So that's the same with your dissertation. Okay. And these are the three basic types of research design. The first two derive from the main philosophical and research paradigms, positivist and interpretive, as have been explained in previous webinars. The last one is a construction based on the basic design, but it is not a mere addition of them, since it tries to build a more comprehensive way of interpreting reality, considering that reality is too complex to be explained addressing only a specific aspect of it. As we pointed out in the quote at the beginning of the webinar, it's not a matter of adding viewpoints, but of making that addition coherent enough to provide a strong explanation of reality. So that's what is behind the mixed method research design. It's not just a matter of putting together some quantitative things with some qualitative things and say, great. No, it is it's a view of reality that is more than a mere addition. Okay? And these are the main characteristics of the quantitative research design, as you can see in that slide. And since it derived from the positivist paradigm, its characteristics, those that are there, are coherent to the postulate that reality exists by itself and therefore has to be approached objectively, and also that reality can be measured. The characteristics of the qualitative research design, on the other hand, show that it is based on the interpretative paradigm principles, that reality is a construction of its actors, and consequently, they play an important role in it and in its knowledge. And the mixed method research design is an attempt to expand the understanding and explanation of reality based on the idea that its complexities demand as many tools as needed to apprehend it. As I pointed out before, the methodology of your dissertation is a kind of user guide to be followed if someone wants to evaluate your study or replicate it. That requires that you pay close attention to two stages of the research process: the selection of the research design and the writing of that chapter, the methodology chapter. Regarding the former stage, the selection of the research design, the slide presents the factors you need to take into account to do an effective and appropriate choice. So remember that research question is what you want to answer a test, so you have to use it in order to make decisions. The purpose is what you want to achieve. Do you want to solve the problem, or do you want to understand it better? Okay. It is also important to know how other researchers have dealt with similar problems and questions. The whole methodological process demands time and resources, access to participants, information, possibilities to gather data and that you have to satisfy all those demands. The impact of your research is important because that will establish your contribution to current knowledge. And therefore, you have to choose the research design that will produce more useful knowledge. Your views and belief will be needed to make decisions. Therefore, you will need to feel comfortable with the framework within which you would do it. However, these factors should be considered before choosing the research design when you are looking for problems to study. This way, the whole process would be easier and more consistent. So you do not choose your research design before identifying the problem or before you are formulated the research questions, because you need the research design, the plan, in order to know what and how to answer the research questions. And finally, the writing of the chapter, how you write the methodology chapter, it is necessary to plan it in such a way that each decision made is clear and supported, and that the order of procedures reflect what and where each thing was exactly done, because it is a user guide and it needs to be clear and easy to follow. That's the key to write the methodology chapter. Sorry. And this is the main idea of today's meeting. It reiterates the role of coherence as the glue that keeps all the parts of a dissertation together. Everything in a dissertation must be coherent. Any part of the writing of your dissertation must be coherent. We have discussed in this group how to write down coherent paragraph and how to put together paragraph in a coherent way too. So coherence is the key word for a successful dissertation. And it's time to questions and answers. Remember, please feel free to participate, and we are a group, and as a group, we want to improve. We have a lot of new people here, so please feel free to ask questions, to express your ideas, or to share your concerns or your hopes or any other thing. Okay, we have some minutes to do this. So we have Colleen, welcome. Evelyn, welcome. Karen ES, Mary, Mona, Muritala, Telma, Tobias. Okay. What are your thoughts about two hypotheses? I don't understand why you are focusing. What do you want to know? What are my thoughts about two hypotheses? Could you elaborate that, please? Oh, I haven't welcomed Abedel Moufs. Something like that. Sorry if I don't pronounce it well. Come on, people. You may have a lot of questions. I know that you, most of you come due to academic writing, and this is an academic writing group. The only thing is that we have discussed the basic elements of academic writing during the first 4 weeks, and now we are trying to use that knowledge to write the dissertation parts. Can you speak more to narrative inquiry Well, usually narrative inquiry is a method to gather data for qualitative studies. So you use it if your research questions are focused on getting information that are related to personal ideas or to feelings or to attitudes of your participants. Okay. Is it necessary in a thesis to present the paradigms methodology that you are not aligned with? That's a very good question, Mary. A dissertation, the main goal of a dissertation is to convince people. You want to convince people that your points of view are valid and are have been researched thoroughly, right? So when you mention and discuss points of view that are against the one that you are for, that makes your dissertation more convincing and more solid, because you are telling people, look, I have researched all these positions, and I have found weaknesses in this, and I have found strength in this one. So that's an argument that can convince people of the validity and strength of your work. Cassandra, my research question is the efficacy of training peer advocates in a methadone clinic in ways that will increase client attendance, mental health counseling. And what do you want to know about that, Cassandra? While you elaborate, I say I will move. What is the important method? What is the important method should be followed and used in an exploration research? Well, let's go to the kind of research questions that you use when you are exploring. So we can talk about that. Okay, here you have. If you are exploring things, you don't know, you don't have enough information, and so while you are exploring to know what else you have to take into account. So the kind of research design that you have to use is, it could be quantitative, or it could be qualitative, or it could be mixed method. What you need to know is that that research design is appropriate to get the information that will help you answer the question. Okay, so that let's have a look at this. When it says on the first research question, what differentiated strategies are used to teach minorities at elementary public school in Dade County? So the research question that you need to know that could be only qualitative, or it could be mixed method research design too. Why? Because you need to know how teachers are teaching minorities. Okay, so that's, if you use a qualitative approach, which means that probably it includes observations, interview, and so on, the kind of data that you are going to gather could be used to answer that question. Thelma says, is this a legitimate question? To what extent is there a correlation between? Yes, it is. First of all, you should ask if there is what is the relationship, or what is the thing is that when you use the word correlation, let me talk something about that first. The word correlation is a specific term, a statistical term. So it is usually used in the hypothesis, but it is not so good to use in the research question because it included a statistical element in what you are looking for. So I would say, what is the relationship between X and X in the X effect? Or you can also say, what is the relationship and to what extent? You can ask two questions. The first one is about the relationship, what is, and then about the extent of that relationship. Paminas, while planning to conduct an exploratory study, what research genres may you recommend and why? That depends on the problem. You need to know what the problem is in order to be able to talk about possible research designs. Why? Because you need to know the nature of the variables involved. Okay? And for instance, an exploratory study in chemistry may require different research design than an exploratory study about attitudes. So that depends on the problem. Tobias, my method is narrative inquiry. My research question is, how do Black Greek letter fraternity men who identify as gay, bisexual, or same-gender lover in a historical Black fraternity construct their sense of masculinity? Well, it is clear. I mean, it's a little convoluted. I don't know, because it has too many words. But it's clear that you are trying to know how Black Greek letter fraternity men that have that specific sexual orientation, how they construct their sense of masculinity. I just have one question. That means that you are ruling out the possibility that when they get to that fraternity, they already have a sense of masculinity. I don't know, but I can understand that. Oh, Vivian, you have a dissertation on one of my favorite themes or subjects, applied linguistics. I have a master in that. Okay, Rulister, can you clarify the difference between the theoretical framework and conceptual framework? Oh, yeah, I did it with, it's not here now, with Mohammed. Let me read you what I wrote to Mohammed about that. Okay. You know that the point is that there are different views about theoretical and conceptual framework, in the sense that for some people they are the same, and for other people they are different. Okay. And some literature consider the same and some equals. Some literature conceptual framework as research paradigm. That's a way. Okay. And I like this way of viewing it. Okay. Conceptual framework consists of concepts that are placed within a logical or sequential design Those concepts are used for studies in which existing theories are inapplicable or non-existent, and they are derived from empirical observation and intuition, and it is possible to deduce theories from a conceptual framework. So you use a conceptual framework to clarify concepts and propose relationships among the concepts in a study to provide a context within which you can interpret the findings of a study or explain observation or encourage the development of theory. While theoretical framework consists of interrelated theories that may explain how a phenomenon functions and the reasons for that. So it is used to test theories, to interpret findings, to establish connection between observation and facts, and to predict and control situation. I mean, that's my point of view, and there are other people that think they are the same. And my advice is always to tell students, check what your university and your supervisor think about that, and give them what they are expecting you to give. Be pragmatic. Cassandra, with a peer advocate, clients in recovery who engage in community activity be able to help increase client attending counsel section. They come and get their medication for their addiction, but they don't like to attend free counseling with our counsel. So I'm looking at two issues. Can I train them to positively influence their peers and encourage them to attend counseling? And will this result in more folks attending counseling? So you are, in fact, interested in testing a theory, which is that some people can have a training that make them a kind of trigger for other people to do something, and you want to know what the results of that are. Okay, so you are in fact looking for research questions that are explaining things. Okay, this one. Because you want to know if what is the relationship between the training that you want to provide and the increase in attendance for counseling. Okay. Abdelmouf, I'm exploring a physician in an if-L textbook. Adrian, you love that. So I would like to investigate how they are presented in the association exercises and their use as whole in the textbook. Oh, I think that Adrian can give you some advices about that. Can you, Adrian? To what extent is burnout among urban middle school teachers affected by the relationship between WFC and GDR? Okay, from the linguistic point of view, I want to point out that the correct verb is affect, not affect, because affect is a noun, is the result of an action, is an effect, and the correct verb is affect. Okay, which is that. And well, it has there is an assumption there, and the assumption is that you have proved or you have evidence that says that there is burnout among urban middle school teachers. That's the first thing. Okay, that's the first thing that you that you need to prove that that burnout exists. Once you know, or once you have proved that, then you are trying to find out the extent of that relationship. Yes, that's true. Well, Moodle would like to investigate how they are presented in the association exercises and their use as whole in the textbook. So you will need to review the textbooks as source of data. That's your source of data. And you have to review a lot of text in order to this to check or to find out how their affixation exercises are presented. So it's just a matter of exploring, and as an exploring study, you have to check and review the source of data that in your case are the textbooks. Okay, any other question before I present the exercise? Well, let me present it, and then we can continue talking. The exercise of this week is, wait a minute, here, is here. So it is focused on your research question and research design. And you have to write down those two things, but also reflect upon the coherence among not only those two things, but the rest of your pivotal elements, which are the problem, the purpose, and the theoretical framework. Yes, Vivian, you can, that depends on how your university approached the point, but you can write down research questions, or you can write down objectives. Some people, yeah, it's basically research questions, objective, or you can work only with hypotheses. That depends. And it is also advisable that you check your problem statement and reflect upon your problem statement to see what is the necessary element to address the problem. A question, an answer to a question, or an objective to achieve. Yes, objectives are broader because they are related to what you want to achieve. And research question have the advantages that you can make them specific in order to gather the exact type of data that you need to answer the questions. Okay. Any other questions? Or I think I can end the recording and we can continue talking. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. We can continue